You may have potential patients in this room, but I'm not saying who. I'm not saying which of the two. But you're in the hot seat of the Situation Room, even as we have this conversation. Yeah. One of the things that we do is that we go to around the African continent. Every week we come back from a particular country, and we come back with their proverbs. We would then ask you to interpret or how you feel this proverb then relates or resonates with you. This week we're in Guinea. Guinea is in Francophone West Africa. And this is the proverb for today. Your beauty will take you there, but your character will bring you back. Your beauty will take you there, but your character will bring you back. What do you make of that?
That's a very interesting proverb. I think it probably, to me, it talks about the importance of the character in keeping you on track in life. And, the distractions that are around you may guide where you see things that where you go, but really your foundational track is embedded in your character. Yeah,
I love it.
I would think.
That's great. Every time we hear rot, we think about decomposition.
Yeah.
Something's being broken down, it starts to stink, and then it's maybe useless and you have to toss it out. But you're not going to go ahead and toss your brain out. Yes. Do we think about the same thing when it comes to the brain and when we say brain rot? And this is directly linked to social media use. Yes. Is it a new term? Is it something that has always been there? Let's start from the very beginning, Doc. What is this, Prof?
So I think that it can be interpreted in many different ways. The rot is not literally a rot. What a rot means is that the functioning of the circuits of the brain are not working, just like in your computer. If you spill something on your computer and it stops working, it is because the circuits have been short-circuited, right? Similarly, in the brain is a physical organ that is highly active, and it is made up of circuits of the nerve cells in the brain. And so when anything that disrupts the functioning of those circuits, then it could be interpreted as a disruption or a rot. Yeah.
Wow. In the wake of the millennium,
yes,
we were excited to usher in the new millennium. The era of digitization, computerization, gadgets becoming smaller,
yes,
and very mobile.
Right.
And so we seem to have transitioned a lot of our interactions to gadgets.
Right.
We even now have developed what we call social media platforms. And I think you'd agree, in our early days, social meant human interaction,
yes,
a lot of activities. So that transition is what now we are beginning to question. Like, really, is it very good for us as humans? Is it making us better? It might be making our work easier. It might be making data generation easier. But does it make functioning of us as human beings better? I think that's the question you're trying to look.
Yes.
Now that the brain is domiciled to have major and different functions, retention, memory, problem solving. But today, if you ask a child, I see kids doing homework with their tablets, with their phones.
Yeah.
I see grown-ups doing a crossword. I'm not saying you.
Why are you pointing at me? I don't understand.
Prof, I see some of my friends doing crosswords with their phones, instead of cracking in your brain.
Yeah.
So we kind of been configured to these gadgets or apps or science.
Yes.
How would you say the brain rot, the disintegration of the brain functioning, is developing? Is it as a rapid, worrying, alarming state?
Yes.
Should we start to look at it differently?
Yeah.
Or where are we?
Yes. It's interesting that you asked that question. I think that it's a very fundamental question right now for a few reasons. One is that people and governments are getting increasingly concerned about exactly that question. So these gadgets that are so readily available to us, be it the tablet or the phone or the computer, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous now. I mean, even if you go to the restaurants, you see very young kids who can't even walk yet. Yet they have the gadget in their hand, and they can manipulate that gadget very well. So it has become a ubiquitous tool that everybody can use. But tools always have two sides to it.
Right.
It's like a knife. Okay, you can use knife very productively to help you cook, to cut things, to make it manageable. But you can use the knife very destructively if you choose to do so. And social media is not any different. And what is very interesting is that the big firms that are very keen on getting you engaged on their platform and spending a lot of time on their platform have really started to exploit the potential to get you hooked. And as a consequence, I don't know whether you're aware, just yesterday there was a ruling. A young woman had sued social media firms, and the jury essentially held them legally responsible for the harms caused by the platform.
Right.
And this is not just the content. What is very unique and exciting is that for the first time, they are being held responsible for the addictive nature of the platform itself, not the content. So this is considered to be a tobacco moment for technology. This is for the first time they're actually recognizing the fact that by exploiting the aspects of the platform itself, that they can get you hooked and they can get you addicted to the social media.
And that's their intent.
Exactly, this is their intent. As a matter of fact, when you speak to the owners and the developers of these platforms, they'll tell you very openly that they are fine-tuning algorithms that get you to a state where you become dependent and engaged in their platforms for as much of time as possible. So you will see kids constantly screening, constantly streaming, and not paying attention to the world around them.
Not playing outside, riding their bicycles, or doing whatever else.
So in Europe, for example, they have a movement saying "heads up," because what they've noticed is people are looking heads down at the media and crossing the streets and things like that and getting into harm's way. So I think that it is a time when the governments are getting very concerned. You might have heard about the activities in Australia where they're trying to restrict access to social media for especially the young kids.
Yes, there was that landmark ruling in Los Angeles, and the person was awarded, I think, $6 million.
Yes.
Because of that, you say the apps are designed to get you hooked.
Yes.
And the inventors argue it is customer retention. You know, we don't want you addicted, we're just retaining our customers. So they keep on tweaking the algorithm, as you say.
Yes.
Yes, Australia is making that move. I also learned that Sweden is beginning to revise their education sector and reducing tech use. They want to go back to books. They want to go to printed work. They want to go to writing. Because I think there's a rapidly growing tendency. People are losing their writing skills.
Yes.
And also a lot of things are happening in that front. So when you look at the brain being there, because all this is centered around the brain, it's the main organ that everybody is targeting.
Yeah.
When we talk of brain rot, when we see those advanced countries trying to say, no, this is what we need to start revising. And here we are in Africa and more so in Kenya, trying to go now more digital, elements. What would you advise us to start looking at in terms of growing a healthy brain?
Yes.
The heads up movement in Australia. What are the measures we need to start looking at?
Yes. I think that what we need to start looking at is really taking it more seriously in terms of especially young people, mainly because their brains are developing. And as I said earlier, the brain, the way it works, it's like a circuit, like many circuits that need to operate in a certain way. These circuits are designed to be more or less sensitive to different environmental conditions. And so as the brain is developing, our brain really doesn't fully mature till we're over 20. And now you can see that even the young kids, as I was saying, they're in the crib, they might be using, devices. So what impact is that having on the development of the brain itself? Because the brain then, as you just said, is the primary organ, that's responsible for whatever you do, whatever you feel, whatever you think. That's all managed by your brain. So if you're altering the functioning of the brain through these devices, are we doing irreparable harm? Or are we kind of are we setting them up for a very different world and very different experience? And that's the worry that us parents, for example, often have about our kids engaging in the social media. So I think that it's important that we take it seriously and begin to pay attention to what, not only the positive sides, and there are many positive sides to social media, but also what are the potential harms and how can we minimize those harms, especially to the children.
I'm really trying to understand exactly what happens between spending so much time on a gadget, for example, whether it's watching videos, whatever the case may be, and this maybe degeneration that happens in the brain.
Yes.
What's the connection? What exactly is going on here?
So as I said, it's not really degeneration. It's not like a physical falling apart of the brain. What it is the sensitivities of the different circuits of the brain that control different functions that is changing. And the sensitivity of those circuits is now being manipulated by the social media platforms. So by giving you a constant stream of information, media, something that stimulates your brain, gets your attention, and the algorithms are designed in a way that they get you engaged more and more. It's very insidious because if you look at how the information flows, it's very smart. The algorithms not only are designed to give you the information, but they'll give you the information that they know get you excited. Everybody gets excited by different types of things and different content. They're constantly monitoring how much time are you spending on certain kinds of feeds, and they'll give you those feeds customized to you, and just to hold your attention, because they make money on how much time people spend on their platform. So there is a dollar value behind it. And so that's what's driving the whole circuit. And so, as I said, it's don't look at it as if something is falling apart in your brain. No. What is happening is that your brain is reframing itself. The brain is very plastic. The brain can change a lot.
Yes.
And so this is what they are tapping into. And so when you ask the people developing algorithms, they'll tell you that what they're trying to do is manipulate the systems in your brain, the neurotransmitters in the brain, for example, the dopamine system, that actually is behind the feeling of acceleration that you get. Those are hits of neurotransmitters in the brain. And the more they can stimulate that more frequently and more repeatedly, the more you get engaged into those circuits.
And then it must be very alarming, because out of that, we seem to have developed even industries. You hear the gamers, people who play the games.
Yes.
We have very, funny names. He's a geek, he's a computer geek. You make it look fancy. But then on the flip side of that, you realize a lot of these people now struggle with social interactions. And I like how you put it, that they keep on trying to, they tap on the reward system of the brain. So they get you hooked. They configure it so that you want to see the next.
Yes.
I see even adults, not just young kids, you find somebody just on social media for an hour, just going through the reels and the short videos.
Yes.
There's also the binge watching of series. Now they don't want you to watch a movie for 2 hours. It's a 4-season series.
Yeah, with 22 episodes.
22. And people will say, I'll be binge watching this weekend, So How this then, just not even to mention the waste of human hours, that you could be doing other things. You could be tilling your garden. You could be, spending time with your grandmother or your grandchildren or your nephews or nieces. So how does this holistically now affect our way of life? Because if my brain is beginning to get configured and I'm developing, they may not want to call it addictive, so we can call it compulsive tendencies. How does this now affect my general interaction in life with other aspects?
So if you look at the ruling that came out in the States just yesterday, they actually argued that the platforms, the social media platforms, contributed to addiction, to depression and anxiety, and to self-harm and body image issues.
Right.
So you can see that there are layers of how the jury interpreted how the platforms were potentially harming the individual. And then they also highlighted the fact that people were not warned about the side effects. So if you look at any product off the shelf that you buy, there'll be a warning label, be it cigarettes, be it medication. There's always warning people about the potential harms. And the social media doesn't do that. Okay. So people are unaware.
Is that by design? Is that by design?
It's by design. It's because they're not required.
I'm really struggling with this today, if you can tell.
Right.
Because you can turn off the tab.
Yes.
You can put it away.
Yes.
You can switch off your phone.
Yes.
And are we now making the connect then with, like drug and alcohol abuse, where by the time you've imbibed quite a number of drinks that it becomes difficult for you, that high that you achieve from being on the drink, it's an addictive thing. That the drug that you take becomes addictive. Are we saying that we are making a correlation between that high that you get from having a drink and a high now that you get from being on social media, on your computer?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that is one of the contentions. That is what people believe, is that just like how drugs sabotage your transmitter systems that normally are designed to give you pleasure, and they hijack it so that they amplify the signal so much that then the normal highs that you get are no longer comparable. Then you rely on the highs that you get from the drugs. Similarly, the highs that you get from getting onto a social media, the contention is very similar in the sense that it is hijacking your system so that, the more frequent and rapid hits that you get of pleasure, little bits of pleasure over and over in a very unpredictable manner, is what's contributing to sort of addiction to social media. So there is a lot of similarities between what you're saying about drug use on the one hand and social media on the other. It's easy to say, shut it off. It's like me telling you, an alcoholic, not to drink, or telling a chain smoker, put away the cigarettes.
So what's the drug here? Is it the flashy lights of the computer, the tab, the phone? Or is it the content? Because if you're on some of the platforms, for example, whereas it could be visual content, the content is actually different from page to page or whatever the case may be. So what's the addictive factor?
So that's a very interesting question you ask. And as I said, what is very unique about how the social media platforms are tapping into you personally is that it figures out how much time do you spend on particular kinds of images, be it sexual images, be it flying or whatever, food, whatever excites you. And they will provide you that kind of content to you. And it might be very different from the content that you get. And by fine-tuning, they're actually customizing how you experience the information that's coming at you. So you're getting a very rewarding stimuli in unpredictable intervals, which is very important, and very frequently. And that kind of keeps you engaged. So you don't know what's coming next, and you want to see what's going to come next because, last time you got a lot of pleasure out of it, and you keep on getting unpredictable hits of this pleasurable content that's coming at you that keeps you engaged more and more. Yeah.
Well, and it is termed as social. So if you're not part of it, then the FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yes.
It
Yes.
preys on you like it has to get you hooked.
Yes.
So the chase continues. Now, in terms of like a diagnosis or analysis, if we were to look at a person who is having a brain rot, and compare that to Ndu's brain, hopefully he spends less time with the with the socials,
Hopefully.
with the screens. In terms of imagery, are there substantive distinction? Like if you did an imagery of the brain, you'd
Yes.
see the flow of the nerves, what is active.
Yes.
Is there? Huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's fascinating because if you look at, we're learning a lot through brain imaging, for example, to
Yeah.
understand, because you can't see the brain, right? It's encased in the skull.
Right.
And so how do you get to the brain? One way you can get a window to the brain is through imaging. There have been a lot of imaging studies recently looking at the functioning of the brain of those individuals that are constantly on the social media versus those that are not. And they are actually seeing changes in the sensitivities of the circuits in the brain of those individuals. So these people, these kids who cannot put their phones away, for example, their sensitivity of the circuits that particularly utilize dopamine as a transmitter is different. And you can actually see it.
Okay. Well, let's look at management and then treatment, I guess. When we come back, we're looking at brain rot and social media and brain rot this morning with Professor Merali. This is a Healthy Friday conversation. We're going to take a break and come back and continue and say, okay, brain rot can be diagnosed. If it can be diagnosed, then it can be treated and managed, I guess. And it's a lot more than just shutting off the phone or shutting off the tablet.
Yes.
It's 29 minutes to 8 o'clock. This conversation continues when we come back. Don't go away. Phone, looking
Right.
at whatever it is that you need to look at.
Yes.
Or that you walk into a room where there are kids, teenagers, whatever, and everybody's got a gadget. Everybody has a tablet that they're looking into.
Yes.
Walk into an airport lounge, for example, and everybody is on their phone. So how does... And we're going to go to treatment and management of these conditions in a bit, but how would the insistence on social spaces then be something that would counter this problem? And it's not a bougie thing. People say, well, you need to have parks and greenery, but the people who actually make sure that those things are involved in their city planning are the forward-thinking ones. If you make it cement city, the likelihood of you getting people to go outside is crazy. And that's why in Kenya, I've seen it. When it's end of the year and people are traveling to their different villages for Christmas, the most excited are the children because there are wide open spaces for them to run around. They can be outside. They play in the rain even.
Yes.
So there seems to be a hunger and a yearning to be outside, but we have put them in these boxes where I need to keep you busy, so I'm going to give you a gadget.
Yes.
So there's a wider conversation here.
Yes.
So how do we then ensure that those things happen? I mean, people are already talking about, can we go out and sit and speak to each other? Can we be in places where we can move physically, go for a walk, do other things that will take up that 2 hours that you use looking at the phone?
Yes. It's so true. And I think nothing irritates me more when I walk into a restaurant and see exactly what you're talking about. People are going out to have socialized and have dinner together, yet everybody is sitting looking at their own devices. And so I think that's part of the problem that we're trying to address. And that is, what do we do about this? Because people are, very clearly, the platforms are designed to keep you engaged as long as possible. That is the bottom line. So now, do we fall victim to that? Are we falling victim to that? And I think that what you are talking about is exactly that we are falling victim to that, and we are spending a lot more time on the social media. It has its own deep impact on the well-being of individuals, as you saw from the ruling that just happened yesterday. The issue is that the young people in particular, that's become their social place. When I was growing up, we used to go, our parents used to say, well, school is done, go and play in the lanes with your friends, and then but make sure you come back at supper time, and then we're going to eat together. And we played with our friends. Now we don't see that anymore. People are very much take their social media and they play on the social media with their friends.
Right.
And very often what they're doing is comparing each other's lives. And what's being presented on the social media is very curated. I mean, it's not the true picture that you see.
Yeah.
You can see people getting ready for selfies or things like that, and how quickly their face changes and the posture changes, and life is all good, when in effect it's not. And so people start comparing with each other. They're spending a lot of time on social media. They're starting to actually make friends on the social media. You have hundreds of friends, but yet you know nobody, right? You don't have true physical friends. You're losing your skills to be able to talk to your friends at a personal level, and instead you're using lingo on the social media, and then comparing how many friends I have or how many hits I have, and so it's sort of a bit of a quagmire. And the more people get kind of some of the individuals get very dependent on that, and that becomes their world. And so it is very different from the natural world. I think we're lucky in Nairobi, for example. We have many urban forests, like Karura, for example. And if you go there, you see lots of kids, a lot of adults. Hardly anybody's looking at social media. They're in touch with nature and enjoying nature. And I think that is the tension that we're kind of feeling right now. Why aren't we doing more of that? And why are we spending so much time on social media? And that the tension is exactly that. The case that spoke yesterday, it was addressing exactly that issue, is that, the engineering of the algorithms that are grabbing you and keeping your attention are specifically designed to tap into your brain circuits, to kind of hang you there.
So if you understand that,
yes,
then you know that, then you would then understand that actually this is not good for you, because anything that puts you in an addictive state is potential danger. That's the truth. So if we look at things like management, and because we're essentially saying it's a disease, addiction is a disease.
Yes.
Right? And if we're saying that has what has gotten to people, when we look at the management of it, how do we go? And I'm seeing in my head, even the things that we would say would take us back to traditional ways of doing things, like reading books, even that has been put on a gadget, right? My kids would say that, this woman, I make sure that everybody gets 2 books a month. You're going to read the book. You're going to crinkle the pages and you're going to read from end to end. Because I realized that writing was poor, and that one of the best ways to learn how to write well is to read. And I am not going to put it on a gadget. You will read the book. You will turn the pages from beginning to end, and then we'll have a discussion about what was there. But do we look at management of traditional things as a way to get over this? Like putting the gadget down and going to ride your bicycle, going to take a walk with somebody. Joe and I can go take a walk later on and have a discussion face to face kind of thing. Is that what kind of treatment? I mean, it's so hard for me to say treatment for something that doesn't bear some kind of, I don't know, physical injury. But is that what we are looking at?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, on both sides of the equation. So what the court ruling yesterday is pointing out, and that is what many governments are grappling with, how to get a handle on that, is that how do we change the algorithms on social media to become less of what they're aiming towards. They're aiming towards your brain circuits. They understand what circuits get activated and hold you there. They're saying, instead manipulating that, you need to back off. And, social media can be very useful.
Absolutely.
Right? And so how do we don't want to throw away the baby with the bathwater. So let's figure out, and the firms, the social media firms, need to take some responsibility. The other part of the responsibility is you as parents and children themselves, is to see what can we do not to fall, not to be caught up in that. So it's a tension between the two. So what the ruling yesterday happened is pointing to the fact that the social media have to take some responsibility. They cannot manipulate the brain circuits the way they are with specific algorithms that keep you engaged. And then on the other side, the social responsibility is also to teachers, to students, to parents, and the individuals themselves as to how do we manage the amount of time that we spend on social media.
Now, in terms of brain development,
Yes.
as we expect our children to hit some specific milestones as they advance in age. And as you said, up to until maybe 2025, that's when the brain is fully developed. When there is this distortion at an early age, because a lot of parents will use the gadget as a soothing gadget, the kid is crying, give them a screen, put on Miss Rachel or any other cartoon, you need to do some house chores. So sometimes it comes in handy. But then, as you say, rightly put it, there is significant disturbance on how that brain develops, because this kid may just be, they even know how to request you to switch on the TV with the remote before they can speak, right? So, and we see that as, they're very smart. They know what they want.
Yeah.
But the downside, what you're saying is that this kid could be learning other things, maybe the motor skills, social skills. And they say that kids never get bored. You leave them alone for 15 minutes. They'll devise a game. They'll figure out something.
Yes.
So what are we taking away from especially that young lot that is developing when we make sure that we are outsourcing parenting or friendship from the gadgets, from the screens? What are we taking away?
So what you're taking away is the experiential learning and the way the brain develops. There is the big area of the brain called the frontal cortex that is at the very front where your forehead is. And that is a part, that actually is very important for attention and for executive functioning. And essentially, that is the area of the brain that develops the last. And, very often this frontal cortex actually controls the or modulates the emotional parts of the brain, right? So emotionally, you might want to do something, and when you look back to your younger days, you'll realize that you did things that now as an adult you would not do because you have a matured system that is actually controlling your emotions and impulses. Now, if you disrupt those types of connectivity between different regions of the brain as they are developing, if the frontal cortex doesn't get enough chance to kind of compete with the emotional hits that are being driven by the algorithms, then you are potentially compromising the sensitivity of that circuit. As I said, it all has to do with sensitivities of different circuits in the brain. So if that circuit from the frontal cortex to the emotional part of the brain is not developing properly, then you will have the consequences of that. You might become much more sensitive to feedback through social media or through your friends, and you might grow up that way, not being able to be as resilient as kids who may have that opportunity to develop the more controlled circuit development of the brain.
And when there is no better development of the circuits of the brain, could this lead to other conditions? Like you see, in some movies, they'll give you a warning for people who are in the spectrum. There are flashlights, beware. So with that, could this also set people who are prone or susceptible to certain conditions because of developmental issues?
Yes.
Can it exacerbate? Could it make it worse?
It could make it worse. I mean, it definitely could make it worse. But I think that the issue really is how do you allow the brain to develop more normally? Because, when we evolved, these types of rapid stimuli, grabbing, attention grabbing situations occurred very rarely.
Yeah.
And now it is becoming so much more intense and so much more frequent that it is not in the real world. That is not what you see, and you're not preparing your systems for then the real world.
Oh.
So autism is not just a an issue that you're born with,
Yes.
but we've also been seeing that there is developmental autism.
Yes.
And often we have also heard, you tell us how it is, that screen time can, and I don't know if it's the flashing lights, again, you can explain, there's a connection between that and one developing autism, then they would essentially be on the spectrum. Is there a connection?
Frankly, I'm not sure about that. I don't know if there is a direct connection between autism and screen time or social media. I mean, autism, is a condition whereby the different skill sets within the brain are probably not typical in terms of particularly social interactions. And it is possible that they may find more solace and more engagement in the social media side because it feeds to their likes and it avoids the discomforting things that you might actually see from the real life. So again, it may, because these algorithms are designed to grab your attention individually, it may tune into what is more soothing and stimulating for that particular individual who may have a spectrum disorder. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Then we have to worry about the instant gratification, because even for the adults, you look at it, nowadays you'll find everything is online.
Yes.
EVE will be more prone. EVE is a person who makes us make sure that we are here and well organized. EVE will find it fit to order a takeout than to just cook in the kitchen. Because of the crunched time, she needs also to watch a movie, and then once go to sleep thereafter, she has an early morning the following day. So there's an element of convenience, especially for the adults. We do online shopping. You don't need to go to the mall. You can just order stuff, and they'll find you there.
Yeah.
And because of the configuration you spoke about, the algorithms, then they'll start popping even adverts. Things are on sale, so there's impulse buying.
Yes.
So there's also the economic impact on this one. And then there's the duty bearer. You as a person, we could say, okay, you're the consumer of this. You may not have been forewarned about what is going to happen, but you need to take some responsibility at some point and say, okay, this is too much. So finding an equilibrium, finding healthy spaces outdoor, finding alternative mechanisms of entertaining ourselves, could be reading a book or going and spending time with a friend. Those might be other options. But what are the other things we could start looking into in this modern world? Because we cannot take back the hands of time. We have to be in tandem with the happenings.
Right.
So in this current generation, current circumstances, other countries wanting to take away technology from the education system, as a country, because I think Africa and the West, we have different dynamics and alternatives. But in terms of homegrown solutions, what are some of the things you would say that administratively or socially or even at the home level we need to start looking into?
Yeah. Well, it's a very, very deep question. And I think that probably the one thing that bothers me the most, and I think it does many of the parents, is that they see the kids, instead of playing and engaging with their cohorts, they are now online. They may be engaging with the cohorts on the line, but they are not physically meeting as individuals. What is also very interesting, because I work at the Brain and Mind Institute, we are very concerned about brain health and mental health, as you know, at the Brain and Mind Institute. What you're seeing is that the young kids these days, their levels of anxiety and depression are on the rise.
Really?
Unlike other conditions such as cardiovascular disease or diabetes and HIV and malaria that we are beginning to be able to control. And the incidents sometimes are going down. You don't see that in the mental health domain. The mental ill health and the mental illness is on the rise. And what we're talking about, the social media, I think, is contributing to this. Because A, it is chipping away at their self-esteem, because they're constantly looking at how everybody else is living, which is curated, but to them it looks real, and they want to be like them. It's impacting their body image because everybody looks nice and skinny and whatever, and then you feel, how come I'm not looking like them? It chips away at your, or how come this person has so many friends and I only have a few? Constant comparison and chipping away at your self-esteem is definitely contributing to the distress that these young people are feeling. And they're getting that more and more because they are less and less in physical contact with their real people, And so the other thing that's happening is that we haven't talked about is that, when you are on social media, the world is yours, okay? Your friends are from all parts of the world. This issue of time, zone, and differences, like when night happens, we usually go to sleep and we're done. I'm finding many of the young kids are constantly, they have the phone on the side, they're getting bings from their friends who might be at a very different time zone. They're not sleeping well. There is light that emanates from the media that impacts the quality of your sleep. That's impacting you as well. So now they're getting socially isolated. They are getting their self-esteem being hit. They are not sleeping well. That would be a part that would help you regenerate your brain when you're resting. That is not happening as much as it should. And you're not socially interacting with your friends.
But Prof,
yes,
this phone cannot be taken from this child. This child is supposed to be sleeping in their room at night, whatever.
Yes.
But they have a phone next to them. They're talking with people.
Yes.
There is a caregiver, I would assume, that can make sure that child does not proceed to their bedroom with the phone.
Yes.
So it seems to me that there can be some kind of physical intervention to ensure that this process where we talk about that leads towards, depression in a child is a serious thing.
Yes.
That leads to depression, that leads to anxiety and all of these other things can actually be circumvented at a point whereby we can go back to what we say is an inherently African thing, whereby you say some amount of discipline then has to take place.
Yes.
Because you can actually stop the thing from happening.
Yes. Yes. More easily said than done. And especially as the kids get a little bit older, they will fight you tooth and nail to have their social media. They'll say, away from them. It's going to be a battle, and that not everybody can win that battle, depending upon the relationship between the children and the parents. It's the same thing as, as we talked about maybe substance use. You'd say, take away the bottle. Don't make it available to them. Can you do it? They'll try to circumvent in any way they can. And not that you're not right. I think that should be happening. But does it realistically happen? Sometimes people don't want to go through the hassle.
Or maybe because we still don't make the connection at that level that this is actually a reason towards a really detrimental situation.
Yes.
We can't see, we can't make the connection.
Yes, because sometimes we can't make the connection because we don't have that knowledge, and sometimes we don't want to make the connection because it's very convenient. And we ourselves abuse the technology.
Maybe to demystify something real quick, Prof. We are advised, I don't know whether it's true, so I need you to use some wisdom on this, that if it is best when you go to bed, leave your phone outside that bedroom. Even don't have Wi-Fi connection in that bedroom, if possible.
Yes.
Is it true there is these waves, I don't know, it's radioactive or whatever waves you'd say, with the interaction with the brain, that they could interfere with the brain sleep quality, brain functioning? Or is it just
Are you talking about Wi-Fi or are you talking about the device?
all of them, whichever is correct? I'm looking for some facts, some truth.
Well, I think, I think it's a great idea to restrict access to the phones when you go to bed.
Right.
I think it makes all the sense in the world to make it so that they can sleep in peace. Okay. The problem is, like, when you have this issues that when you're so engaged with social media, many of the kids, you know, when you take the technology away from them, are become very anxious now because they don't know what's going on in their social world anymore. They're disconnected. They feel this sense of panic as if they're out of touch and they'll be left out. Okay, when you're sleeping, they might sneak out of the room and go and find their phone because they're so hooked on it. But I think we need to find a way out of this. And I think that the ruling yesterday from the U.S., what's happening in Europe and what's happening in Australia, when the governments themselves are recognizing the potential detrimental effects of social media on brain development and young kids, we're all trying to come to grips with it. How do we take away some of the potency that is there right now in those devices and those particularly the algorithms that are being developed? That is where I think the crux of the matter is that we've become so good at learning what keeps your brain engaged, how to activate those dopaminergic systems to get you the hits as frequently as
you need
to
them.
keep you. So now we're using science, brain science, to actually create algorithms that actually tap into it. And so now I think the line has been crossed, and we're trying to figure out how do we find an equilibrium.
Sure. the sleeping part, when you have less electricals or electric gadgets, is the sleep vibration, like sleep has levels, so it could be deep slumber and all that.
Yes.
Does it really affect?
It's affected by the